Arch Advocate podcast for Tuesday, December 18th. Merry Christmas, everybody. Correction to yesterday's show. Christmas is actually next Tuesday, not next Monday. It's next Tuesday, and I'm very sorry for all of the catastrophe that misinformation has caused. The pain and the misery in so many innocent people's lives. Sorry about that, everybody. It's next Tuesday. Merry Christmas. Today's show, going to be breaking down why I am deplatforming Jack Conte of Patreon. We're going to be talking about BuzzFeed's article on the fact that there are more slaves, people literally living in slavery today, this very moment, than at any other point in human history. And then we're going to talk about something that's pretty disturbing. A 10-year-old little boy being allowed to dance in a gay strip club for money. Okay, that's where... Sorry, I almost just threw up, just even saying those words. It's very disturbing. And again, like there's a thing here you have to watch out for. I made this point before. Actually, C.S. Lewis made this point in a book called The Screwtape Letters, which I strongly recommend you either go buy that book and read it, or you can go onto YouTube and allow John Cleese, yes, John Cleese will read it to you in its entirety. It's narrated by John Cleese of Monty Python fame. Either way, like that's it's a must read or absorb in any way that you can. What the point I was trying to make with what's in the very beginning of the Screwtape Letters is devils want you in one of two places, and either one of them is fine with them. They either want you to believe that they don't exist at all, right? So that's one swath of people. Or they want the people that do believe that there are demons to focus in on the work of demons and to get disgusted and to have their light darkened by the work, right? They want you focused in on the evil because it goes back to that old saying, like, you know, the light of the body is the eye, and whatever kind of light you let into your eye, that's gonna illuminate your whole body. And if that light be darkness, then how much more dark? You know what I mean? Like that whole thing. It's like, or like, you know, what we used to say, or what our parents used to say in the '80s, like, you know, garbage in, garbage out. It's literally that. Right? They want you focused on the garbage. They don't want you focused on them. They want you focused on the work. Right? Because it will corrupt your soul. Just like when I just mentioned that just a second ago, that I'm going to be talking about that on today's podcast. It's like I literally had a visceral, like a physical, like, oh God. You know? You probably had some sort of response to hearing it. Right? That's the thing that we need to avoid. That thing right there, right? And we're going to get into that. But first, big shout out to one Todd Milligan, one of the original crypto creeps, came through with a PayPal yesterday. Bling, bling, buddy. Merry Christmas. Thank you for that, Todd. Appreciate you. And also, Bad Wolf hooked it up like about a week ago. And that's, you know, PayPal. Right, that's for a little while. That's going to be the only means of supporting this show, other than hitting the subscribe button, because we're not doing Patreon anymore. I've written a letter. Oh, well, just one more thing. Thank you for that, Todd. By the way, just quick side note for everybody. I was talking with Todd, and now Todd is he's a writer as well, and only he's a little bit further up the trail on that particular journey than I am. He has more knowledge about how all that stuff works. He's already invested, you know, quite a bit of money into, you know, learning how to market, learning how to publish, and all that other stuff. Like he's further down the road. So he and I are going to be working together. Hopefully, we still have a lot of spitballing to do, going back and forth. But I hope to for 2019. One of my goals is to have like a regular, like. Not just a writing group, but a group for people who have any sort of creative inclination whatsoever. It could be carpentry, it could be anything. but some place where we can come together and encourage and hold each other accountable to that, right? And for a lot of reasons. So I'm gonna be talking more about that as that progresses. I still have, by the way, I only just threw that idea out to Todd yesterday, but we will hammer out the details on that. So thank you, Todd, for the dough. You have no idea how much I appreciate that. I wanted to read one letter, getting into the Patreon thing. I wrote, sorry, I just opened up my email. This was, I wrote messages, emails, and messages to everybody on Patreon, or if I have your email address, then I sent you an email. But I wrote one guy, goes by the Spirit Ambassador, and he says, done. Because I wrote him, I said, hey, listen, turn it off, right? I appreciate the money. You have no idea. I depend, this show depends on it, right? Because I have to pay for Libsyn. Libsyn is a host provider for the podcast. That stuff all costs money, and I don't have it. So when you guys support the show, it's like that, I need that. The show must go on. So for me to write to you and say, look, I'm sorry, but I can't accept your money through this platform anymore. That's a big thing for me. It's a big thing for my family. You know what I mean? This is going to hurt. But, well, I'm going to get into it here. So I wrote to the Spirit Ambassador, said, look, turn it off. And he says, done. He says, I left them with the following message when asked why. Because when he shut it down, they asked him, why are you leaving? And he says, well, due to Patreon shutting down voices and violating the First Amendment rights of individuals to say whatever the fuck they want to. His words, not mine. I'm not cussing, Pastor David. I am leaving the site. Have a Merry Christmas, and unbeknownst to you, until now, this is actually the first Christmas I have as a Christian. He says, it's a long story, which from what I've heard parallels with your own journey to find God. For the first 18 years of my life, I was much more aligned with chaos than order, until a prayer saved my life. From that day on, I trusted the process, but still held religion at arm's length. I certainly understand that. A few months ago, I felt the universe pushing Christianity in its messaging, so I asked for a sign, and it came by the way of a number. On December 9th, 2018, a scripture that resonated strongly with a vision I had in 2011. I asked God if it could be that the vision had to do with the second coming, and then I did the math and realized that the due dates are exactly 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days apart. I took that as absolute confirmation, and honestly, it felt very powerful to be able to say without hesitation of doubt that the Spirit which I have been advocating for and in the service to has been Jesus Christ since day one. Merry Christmas indeed. Well, thank you, man. That's there's, you can't, obviously that's a very brief explanation of what you're trying to explain there. Stuff like that happens, man. The Lord works in mysterious ways. That's a very good report. Thank you for sharing that. But for the rest of you guys, listen, no more Patreon. No more. We cannot. Look. So what happened was, let me just break this down, and I'm gonna shoot a little promo here, right in the middle. You guys ready? Because I'm just gonna do this little video, but it's part of the podcast. I'm gonna do this little video for YouTube. Hello, everybody. My name is Pete Dobson, big time podcaster, host of the Arch Advocate podcast. I have been podcasting for over a year now, and I don't have sponsors. I don't run commercials. My podcast is completely funded by the listeners. And the primary way that people have supported this show is through Patreon. And I have decided, in my infinite power and wisdom, to deplatform one Jack Conte, owner, proprietor, CEO of Patreon. You may ask yourself, why would I do such a thing? Why would I do such a horrible thing to shut that man's voice off? To, encroach on his ability to speak? Well, the thing is, Jack Conte has decided to not allow Sargon of Akkad and many others to speak, despite their own internal rules for who they let in and who they don't. And there's going to be a lot of people saying like, well, he's a business owner. He's a private business owner. He can do whatever he wants. Yes, exactly. And I'm a private business owner, and I can do whatever I want. And I can support whatever I don't like. I'm sorry. I can support whatever I like. And I can remove support and discourage support from people I don't like. Here's one thing. The Ku Klux Klan, they are free to organize, and they're free to say whatever they want. They have the First Amendment rights of association and gathering together and all that. I strongly recommend that you never send any money to the Ku Klux Klan. I think that they're bad. I don't think you should support them with your money. So please, dear listener, don't send money to the Ku Klux Klan and don't do business with Patreon. Pete, are you likening Jack Conte to the Ku Klux Klan? No, I'm actually likening him to Hitler. Adolf Hitler, the real one, the actual literal Hitler. Remember the pictures that you would see of Nazis burning books? Oh, Pete, come on. You're talking about burning books. Obviously, there was no books that were burnt. No, there weren't. There were no books burned. There has been a dangerous precedent set. We don't burn books anymore, right? Because it would hurt the environment. Now we just go to, in university, they say, well, we're just not going to tell our students to read To Kill a Mockingbird anymore because it has the N-word in it. Yes, it has the N-word in it. It's kind of the whole point of the book. It's kind of the whole point of the book. You know what I mean? And if you don't want to read the book, go watch Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird, and you'll see like the whole point of that movie is the N-word, why it's bad, racism and all that other stuff. And they're saying like, oh, we just don't want people to read this. Why? That's the same thing as burning books. How is it the same thing? Well, because what is it that you're trying to accomplish? What was it that Adolf Hitler was trying to accomplish? And all the other people, by the way, Hitler's not the only one who did it. Mao Zedong did it. Mussolini did it. All those people did it. Why? What were they declaring? Were they saying, hey, baby, it's cold outside and we need to have some kindling? We need something to burn because it's cold and we need to keep warm. Was that why they were burning books? Was that the declaration that they were making to their society is, hey, we care about you so much that we want you to be warm? Now, that's clearly not what they were doing. What were they doing? Why were they burning books? Oh, because we don't want you to have this particular perspective in your brain. We don't want you to think these thoughts. Did you know that during the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republic, otherwise known as Communist Russia, they wouldn't allow the Bible in? You know why? Because of the book that's contained in the Bible called the Song of Solomon, written by King Solomon. It's a very racy book, if read in a certain light. Some very provocative things in there. And they said, well, we don't want this in our country because it's pornography. We don't want you to read this because it's pornography. It's like, okay, you do realize you're talking about the Bible, right? Like, why would you turn off somebody's ability to take in information, knowledge, and gain perspective from it? You know what I mean? Like, what Jack Conte did to Sargon of Akkad and others, and I'm going to get into it here in just a second. What he did is it's the exact same thing. We don't want this guy putting out what he has in his heart to other people so that they can take in that perspective, because we have deemed that this is bad for society. And instead of a government having power, we have the power. Jack Conte says, I have the power. Matter of fact, let's listen to old Jack right here. This is what he said. Let me make sure I got the volume all the way up here for you. Ready? Here we go.
Patreon recently took down the pages of all the members of Defend Europe, including Lauren Southern's page, and we also took down the IGD News page as well. Some people are really upset about this. Some people have even accused Patreon of making decisions based on political ideology, so I'd like to clear all that up right now. Content policy and the decision to remove a creator page has absolutely nothing to do with politics and ideology, and has everything to do with a concept called manifest observable behavior.
Manifest observable behavior. This has nothing to do with somebody's political ideology. This has to do with what we can see in their behavior. Right? This is wizardry. This is literally what casting a spell means. Right? I just said that we did not remove Lauren Southern because of her political ideology, because of the content that she produces and the slant that it has, right? Because Lauren Southern is a political commentator. She's a journalist who goes after stories that are political in nature. She goes and she gets the story and then she puts it up, or she used to. But no. People, let me cast this spell. Ooh, doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with manifest observable behavior. Do you see the spell working? No, it's not that. It's the exact same thing as what I just said. Here, let me finish.
Using manifest observable behavior is to remove personal values and beliefs when the team is reviewing content. It's a review method that's entirely based on observable facts. What has a camera seen? What has an audio device recorded? It doesn't matter what your intentions are, your motivations, who you are, your identity, your ideology. The trust and safety team only looks at manifest observable behavior. We get rigorous and specific because we're talking about removing a person's income.
Listen to this part. Listen to his voice.
To take away a human being's...
Sorry, let me start it over
rigorous
again.
and specific because we're talking about removing a person's income. The authority to take away a human being's income is a sobering responsibility.
No, it's not, Jack Conte. It's an intoxicating power. It's not a sobering responsibility to you. It is an intoxicant. You're drunk with power, my friend, and you need to go home. You're drunk, Jack Conte, and now you're suffering. Because this is why I love capitalism. This is why I love, yes, capitalism has its flaws. Certainly it does. Certainly. If you allow people to buy whatever they want, you're going to have ultimately a large section of people buying a bunch of stuff that they don't want. They just think that they want it. They think that they need it. You know what I mean? It's like the old who was it? Roy Rogers that said we buy things that we don't want with money that we don't have to impress people that we don't like. That's one of the downsides of capitalism. It's called blowback. That's a very real thing, but it's like, you know what? Like that's on you. You know what I mean? Like if you're not disciplined to understand, like, well, I need this and I don't need that, and I should probably squirrel that money away somewhere instead of buying the whoozy whatsy, then whatever. Capitalism fixes these kinds of problems. I've made this observation before, and it's a little hard to make in like a blurb, but the poorest state in the Union is Mississippi, and there's a number of theories about why that is, but my theory is this, is like, if you ever go to, and by the way, do go to Mississippi. It's a beautiful state, very good food and very nice people, But if you go to Mississippi, not Jackson, right, but other, like go to the smaller towns, you will see like real racism. When I say real racism, I mean like the black people and the white people, they don't live together. They don't talk with one another. They are segregated, and both parties are in on it. It's just how their way of life, right? Like the 60s was very hard on that state, and it's still it's kind of bizarre when you go down there and look. But the reason why they're so poor is because people don't do business with one another. Because they don't like each other. White people don't like the black people don't like the white people, and they don't do business, and that's why they're poor. That's why that state is so poor. They don't hang out, right? And as horrific as it is, like that is a function of capitalism punishing racism. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you can't. You're not going to be able to lift yourself out until you learn to get along with your neighbor, right? So here comes Jack Conte, right? A little bit different of a scenario. Here comes Jack Conte, and he says, well, Sargon of Akkad said a no word on somebody else's platform years ago. And we're going to use that as the germ in which to explain to the American people why we are silencing this guy. This is how this guy pays his bills. And then he got on YouTube, I don't know, probably a year or so ago, talking about Lauren Southern, why he deplatformed her. And he's like, you don't understand, man. This is a very sobering responsibility. No, it's not. You're intoxicated. You love it. You love the fact that there are literally other people, leftists, that are calling for violence, which is, by the way, that's against the law. That is a felony. But you let those people stay on your platform because they align, that manifest observable behavior that you like to cast a spell on people with. It's like the manifest observable behavior of those leftists who literally call for violence. You won't deplatform them because you like their message. Sargon of Akkad is saying, I'm not going to be politically correct. I'm not going to allow you to force me to say certain words. I'm not going, you know what I mean? I'm looking around at a world coming unraveled, and I'm going to document it. Jack Conte says, my power, I need to use my power and silence this man. We must not let this book be read. Let's burn it. That's Nazi stuff. That's Nazi stuff. Jack Conte, you are a Nazi. You're doing the exact same thing the Nazis did. You are deplatformed, sir. So all of my listeners, my many, let me explain something to you here. I was getting $65 a month. 6,500 pennies, right? I was getting $65 a month on Patreon, and what's worse is I needed every dime of it to keep the show going. I would much rather have to work 10 times harder, right? And put myself through personal inconvenience, because let's face it, I'm not going to die. But I would rather do that than to see my listeners' money, because Patreon, they take, I think it was 10% or something like that. I would rather see, I would rather that I would have to go through all that extra hardship than to see you get the $6 that you were going to get. I don't want to see any of my efforts, my creative efforts, and the things that I believe that God has for me to do. I literally, I don't want you to have anything because you're evil. That's like I was saying yesterday, because somebody, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later, like what is evil? Well, evil, I think, in its most simplistic definition is if you do something that's wrong or bad, or however you want to categorize that has echoing long-term eternal effects. Like I said, you blow through a stop sign, it's you shouldn't do that, but it's not going to affect anybody. You know what I mean? You go to war and you kill people, right? That's really bad. And yes, it's going to have long-term effects, but you know what I mean? There's, it's what the way that the way that you have to look at these things is like, okay, so maybe Sargon of Akkad is a guy that is teaching people to think wrongly. It's like, okay, well, who gets to decide that? Adolf Hitler says, burn these books. We don't want people to have this information because that information is bad for them. Okay, well, who gets to decide that? You? Nope. That's power, man. And that's one of the markers of like somebody who like desires power. That's an evil thing, man. Desiring power. Like that's a hell of a thing. It never works out well for the individual seeking it. And this is what Jack Conte is. He's a guy who wants power. He says, oh, this is such a sobering responsibility. No, you're drunk, Jack. No more money for you. And I would invite all of you, even if you're like if you are supporting anybody on Patreon, I recommend that you go onto their Patreon page and write them a message. Say, look, I can't support you here anymore. I still got you back, but it cannot come through Patreon anymore. I have begun setting up an account with a similar site called Subscribestar. And unfortunately, as I was setting it up, there came a message and it said, look, given some of the things that have happened recently, we are overwhelmed with requests right now, which is that's a good problem. So this is probably going to take a while to get set up. Thank you for your patience, that sort of thing. Subscribestar is where everybody's going. When Facebook gets shut down, everybody's going in Twitter and all that. When they start shutting everybody down, we're all going to Gab AI. Hopefully, unless Microsoft shuts them down. But everybody's going to Subscribestar. That's where the migration is going. So be patient with me. Please, I would hope that you would continue to support me in that way through Subscribestar, but it's not set up yet, and it won't be for a little while, at least. Jack Conte, no more money for you, you evil bastard. Anyways, BuzzFeed writes an article. Now this is, it's strange that this BuzzFeed article is getting so much buzz, no pun intended, because I've been saying this for a long time. Like, I've known that there's over 40 million people living in slavery, a great deal of which is sexual slavery. So think about that. There's 40 million people that are slaves right now. Now that's so many people that they just become faces in the crowd. But think about that. There is one person right now living in actual labor slavery. Think about who that person is. There's somebody somebody went into Africa, grabbed and subdued a human male, and then sold that person on an open market for $400. That is a human soul that is living through that right now. I don't know his name. I don't know what he thinks. I don't know what his politics are. I don't know what his religion is. All I know is that is a human being living in captivity. Just think about it as if it's one person and then multiply it to get to 40 million. 40 million people. That's more people that are on the entire continent of Australia. Right? 40 million people. This is the problem. This is the evil, and this is the wizardry of modern day media. You've got all these kids in America, and not just kids either. Right? There's people that are my age, and I'm going to get into that too in a second here. There's people that are all the way to my age and older. They're like, oh man, there was slavery in America 150 years ago, man. We need to repent. It's like, well, I didn't do anything. Like the oldest person I ever knew didn't live during slavery. My great-grandfather, who I knew, who was 94, I think, when he died. I think I was 8 years old. You know what I mean? Like, he was almost 100 years old, and he didn't even see slavery. He was born after the Civil War. Nobody alive knows anybody or ever knew anybody who was alive when it was that long ago. It was a long time ago. And by the way, we were the ones who ended it. The United Kingdom, or England, and the United States, we are the ones who ended it. We ended it. And there's no thank you. No, in fact, it's just the opposite. Is we need to focus on the fact that this happened. This needs to be the most virtuous thing in the hearts of people, is that we sit around and we beat ourselves to death over the fact that there was slavery 150 years ago, and only the top 0.1% of people that lived in America had them. That's the thing that we need to be concerned about. Why is that evil? Why is it evil? Right? Because it would be easy to dismiss that and just say, okay, well, that's just stupid. Right? That's just stupid, and that's just kids being stupid and being falsely virtuous. And to each his own, man, whatever. Like, it would be very easy to dismiss that as not being evil. But here is the rub. Here's the problem with that kind of thinking, is that as those people are running around demanding that statues of Civil War generals be torn down, not the statue of Vladimir Lenin that's in Seattle right now, but the statues of whoever, Robert E. Lee, and these kind of people. Those people that are running around putting all of that work, right? Because it's effort, putting a lot of effort, both physically and emotionally and spiritually. They're putting a lot of effort into this. Like, we need to punish ourselves for having slaves 150 years ago and then ending it. What that causes is, like, all that effort is now being focused on something other than the actual 40 million people, most in human history, the actual 40 million human souls that are living in slavery. That's what makes it evil. It allows those 40 million people to keep going in their slavery. That's evil. That's evil. Get it? You see how I made that connection there? I'm trying to remember that it's Christmas time. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. There's people living in slavery right now. Anyways, but it just, again, don't look at, this is the thing. Like, don't look at the evil, right? Don't look at the puppets. Look at the puppet master, right? It fixes everything. Like you have to get your focus. Like, if you keep staring at that, if you stare too long into these knuckleheads crying out to tear down statues of Civil War generals, and if you stare too long at the fact that there is 40 million people living in slavery right now, like, you'll go nuts. That's where the devils want you. They want you going crazy. They want your eyes being darkened by that. And the way you fight it is, like, you see it. You see it for what it is. It's a military strategy being performed by supernatural beings, right? How do you get people into slavery and get an entire and to get the strongest, wealthiest, most free people in the world to just completely disregard it? Well, you would have to take their nation's youth and get them so busy and worked up over some nonsense, but just as long as it's sufficient to keep them busy on something other than the problem at hand. And then you can see it like, oh, this is just a war. Now, of course they're doing that. That's, if I was the enemy, if I was a bad guy, that's exactly what I would do. That makes sense. Fortunately, I'm on the side of the good guys, and here's what I'm going to do to combat that. I'm going to stay sane, and I'm not going to stare at the actual work of the devils. You know what I mean? I'm not going to allow my soul to get polluted by it. I'm going to cling to my, like Barack Obama said, to my Bible and guns. I'm going to stay close to my God and take directions from him because he's the general. And I don't have to worry about when and where I'm supposed to fight. He will tell me, and I will do it, and I will be protected because he told me to do it. right? Which brings me to my final point. And I'm very sorry to have to. You know what? I don't really want to talk about. Anyways, you guys probably saw this. There's this little boy, goes by the name of Desmond. He's 10 years old, and he was just in New York City dancing at a gay bar for money. That's a huge problem. So I post this, and of course, liberal Sam replies to this news article where it's like, okay, we have a 10-year-old little boy who is in a category, a subset of American culture where just by being in that category, you have nearly a 50% chance of you killing yourself. And he's only 10. So I put that out there, and Sam replies, well, Republicans tried to elect Roy Moore, enough said. It's like, okay, we're talking about an innocent little child here. We're not talking about Roy Moore. So I called Sam a kid fucker. Sam replies, you always miss the point. Roy Moore is a kid fucker. Sure he is. I'm quite certain that a very significant portion of anybody who works in the Beltway is exactly that. Your party tried to elect him to the U.S. Senate. It's like, dude, not what the article was about. It's not what it was about. It was about an innocent 10-year-old little boy. But this is where it gets really bad. This is the mentality of the left. This is, boy, Sam, buddy, I don't believe that you're going to go to hell when you die. I believe that you're in hell right now. This was literally his response. And I quote, this kid dancing at a gay club is exploitative of child sexuality, so extremely objectionable, but not illegal as far as I can tell. That was his argument. He's a lawyer, by the way. That was his argument. Well, it ain't illegal. Well, it ain't illegal. No harm, no foul. This wasn't illegal. Nothing you can do. Like, because society has not yet caught up from a legal standpoint. We've not yet caught up to address that particular shade of perversion. To the extent that we can, write a law for it and say, like, yeah, okay, no 10-year-olds. Number one, I've been to strip clubs, and I know that you have to be at least 18 years old, and in other cases, at least 21 years old to get in. 18 if they don't serve alcohol, and 21 if they do. That's the law. So I'm pretty certain that a 10-year-old being inside that building, period, is against the law. I'm certain of that. But that's where we're at as a people, man. You guys should, what's that book called? The Last Days of Rome. This is where we're at as a people. And this is what I'm saying, like, there is no war coming. It's already begun. And this is where we're at. We have people, even educated people, like, Sam is very well educated. I'm not going to say what school he went to, but it's one that you know about, for sure. I don't care who you are. Like, you, if I were to tell you what school, you'd be like, oh, okay, wow, yeah, that's a damn good school. And not only did he attend that school and graduate, they paid him to go there. He got a full ride. And it was like $160,000 in tuition just waived. That's how smart he is. And his response to this little boy being victimized was, well, Roy Moore. It's like, if you want to talk about Roy Moore, I'll be more than happy to talk with you about that. If you want to talk to me about evil politicians that had an R next to their name, or profess to be conservative, or even profess to be Christian, I will be more than happy to talk with you about that, and you will find that I probably agree with you much more than you might think. However, that's not what we were talking about. Talking about a 10-year-old little boy being sexually exploited, and the left, the progressives, cheered it on. It's disturbing. It is disturbing. And as this segment goes on, like, I know that you're feeling, because I'm feeling it, man. I'm feeling it. I don't want to talk about this story. I do not want to talk about this story. And I don't want to talk about Sam's response to it. And I don't want to talk about the fact that there were other people in that room who went along with it. And I don't want to talk about the fact that there is a political party that endorses that. And there is a political ideology and a sort of life philosophy that embraces that and thinks that doing that is in and of itself progress. I don't want to talk about that because it makes me feel physically ill. It makes me feel physically ill. And that's exactly where the devils want you, right? When you let that information, this is what I'm saying, like, you have to be careful. You have to be very careful with the information. That's why I was recommending to you that you read the Screw Tape letters, because you need, it was, and I'm sorry, it's not going to make a lot of sense. Like, I would have to do a whole show on why, and as a matter of fact, I was thinking about doing exactly that. I was thinking about buying a copy of, you know what, my mom is sending me some Christmas stuff. I might ask her to go get me a book. I was thinking about just reading that a little bit, but reading it in the first person. And not reading it as Uncle Screwtape and his nephew. But the thing is that you have to be prepared for the like you can't be ignorant to it. Like, you have to be aware. Like when those people in Maryland stormed that, those policemen stormed that dude's house in Maryland a couple of weeks ago and then killed him. Because they wanted to get his guns, because some individual called and complained. And we have no idea about what the complaint was. Like, or you can even take, like, remember when Janet Reno burned down the, who was the people down there in Waco, Texas? That, well, according to Janet Reno, they were a cult and whatever. It's like, but yeah, well, we don't know. We'll never know, because you burned them alive. And now they're all dead. Now we'll never know. Like, when you see stuff like that, and you see, like, this 10-year-old kid, and you see, like, man, there's 40 million slaves in the earth this very minute. Right this second, there are 40 million people. There are nations, plural, that don't have that many people. There is an entire nation of people who are living in slavery right now. You look at that stuff, boy, it can darken the soul. Because you're letting that darkness. So what do? Do you bury your head in the sand? No, that cannot be the answer. Like, willful ignorance, which, by the way, if that is what you choose to do, I understand. It's wrong, but it is certainly understandable. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. And if you just wanted to turn a blind eye and just say, you know what, I'm sorry, my soul cannot bear it. I'm just going to focus on my work and my family and doing what I got to do. It's like, dude, I understand that. But no, the answer, the only answer, is you have to focus on the light. Right? You have to focus on the way. You have to focus on the truth. You have to focus on the life, because nobody comes to the Father but through him, Jesus Christ. And it's his birthday next week. Happy birthday, Jesus. Merry Christmas, everybody. All right. Right? Focus on the light. That's the way. That is the way. You want to know what way to go? You want to know what way to get through this? There was a man who stood there and said, I am the way. And the reason why we call today December 18th in the year of our Lord 2018, well, you might want to ask yourself, what happened 2018 years ago that started that clock? It was a homeless man from a conquered nation. His name was Yeshua. We call him Jesus. You may have heard of him. It's his birthday next week. Not really. He was actually born probably in the springtime. But next week is when we celebrate it. Let us celebrate. Let us celebrate that the way has been given to us. And we must walk in the way. So celebrate his birthday this week. Do not neglect to sit down with your children and read them that story. There's all kinds of children's books that have it written out in a way that's a lot more easy for them to absorb. You can do it that way, or you can be an old school prick like me and just break out the King James and read that. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm old school. But do whatever you want, man. Sit down and enjoy that story and impress upon your family and impress upon your kids, like, this is why. We are celebrating the fact that the way came to us and the truth came to us. The life came to us. Jesus Christ, Prince of Peace, sitting at the right hand of God. Amen. Thank you so much. I think we got through that okay. What do you guys think? Send me an email. Go to archadvocate.com. Send me an email. Let me know what you think about the Patreon thing. Please, if you discontinue your support of other people on Patreon, please have the courtesy, just write them a note. They will all understand. We're all in on it. Me, Dave Rubin, Sargon of Akkad, like, we're all in on it. We're all aware of it. None of us want this. You know what I mean? None of us are happy about this, but it has to be done. Because we don't let Nazis burn books. Jack Conte, you effing Nazi. Anyways, like I said, Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.